So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Man, what's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefers?
Yeah, man.
Mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters. It's January the 14th, 2019, and we are live here at 420radio.ca. My name is Al Graham, and this week, Kim Cooper joins me at the Legacy420.com news desk. The two of us appreciate you tuning into the broadcast, don't we, Kim?
We most certainly do, Al, and it's been a busy year in 2019 already, and we're only a couple of weeks into the first month.
Yeah, first 2 weeks of the year, and there's all kinds of news out there to select from, I'll tell you.
That's for sure. It was tough going, picking and choosing. We had to drop some off I wanted to talk about, but it's just enormously busy out there. We got to dive right into it and start right off the top with, of course, federal government situations going on. I'm going to talk a little bit about Trudeau and his government campaign.
Yeah, that's right. Our first article today is an opinion piece on the fact that the Liberals must pass the cannabis amnesty bill.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that advocates, have been calling for from the get-go, and the government has been strangely quiet on the entire situation. Kind of dodging it like a bullet at every turn, and not really saying much about amnesty with legalization. I mean, how can we have people in jail and subject to harsh penalties from previous past records for cannabis charges when this is now a legal product in this country?
Yeah, because it's $631 for somebody to pay for a pardon, and
right.
It's for there's a lot of people out there where that's a financial burden.
Absolutely. Huge financial barrier. A lot of people in today's world society do not have over $600 to fork over to a lawyer to apply for a pardon. These things should be being given out by our government in light of legalization. It should have been part of the package. It hasn't been talked about yet, and it needs to come to the table.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. They need to come up with something. Because when you look down in the U.S., you're seeing some of the states where that's being brought up, where it's a complete blanket pardon.
That's right. They're introducing this legislation with legalization and decriminalization of cannabis in independent states. It's coming hand in hand. It's being discussed at the onset, something that Canadian government failed to do.
That's right. Exactly. So where are they at right now in this process? Do you know offhand? We're still waiting for them actually to come out with something concrete, or have they just waived the $630 fee and say, if you want a pardon, you got to apply for it. It's up to you.
You've still got to go through the whole approval process. Nobody's really moving on actual legislation to get something done about it. And now there's a few petitions out there that are happening, and people saying, we have to go to our MPPs and we have to get, the discussions taking place. It's time to stop penalizing everyday citizens for simple possession of cannabis substances in the past when it is now legal. Expungement should be absolute and happening on the government's hand without independent people having to go through the process of applying. So I think it's up to the public to reach out.
They want to base it on each person's case, whereas, let's say, for an example, somebody was charged with a minor offense of cannabis, but there was other factors, maybe some charges that were dropped that they think that may warrant them not giving that person a pardon.
That's right. That's right. But that's irrelevant. There shouldn't be circumstances that warrant not giving a pardon. If the person is charged, you just remove it. You removed it from the criminal code. It has to be removed from people's records. There is no ifs, ands, or buts, or what ifs about it. It's a substance that is no longer illegal. If a person has it on their record during the time that it was illegal, that needs to be expunged, period.
Yeah, exactly. Well, from that, let's move on to our next story.
Absolutely. Now we're going to talk some more about, some of the system that's going on here in Canada with legalization. Some things that have been going on in the medical community for quite some time are starting to come to light with legalization and everybody speaking more frankly about cannabis. And critics are now calling a lot of the medical producers' systems for getting patients, they're calling them outright kickbacks and saying that it's wrong.
That's right, because the cannabis producers are paying millions in fees to cannabis clinics for patient customers.
Yeah, they're calling them referral fees, and others are calling them education grants. Basically, what's happening is licensed producers are setting up subsidiary organizations under the heading of medical clinics. They're supplying those clinics with funds in order to sign patients up and give them a prescription for medical cannabis and have them sign with that particular LP as their dispensary for their medicine, newly prescribed medicine. This is absolutely a conflict of interest, and we've never had this in any other system in the medical community. The producer of a medication cannot be in charge of a clinic that signs up patients that say you need that medication on the basis of being sold medication solely by them. And that's what's happening with these clinics.
Well,
if people want to use a different LP, some of these clinics are saying, no, if you don't
that's right.
the
Some
one
of them
we give you, you don't get the script.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're limiting them. They're not giving them a choice on where they want to go. They're limiting them their choices. And according to this report here in the National Post, insiders say that when someone files their prescription with a producer, that company usually pays the clinic 15 to 20% of the cost of each dose of cannabis.
That's right.
The buyer, each time the buyer buys,
Yeah, every single month when you fill your prescription, the clinic that authorized your prescription that works under this regime will get a kickback off of your money that you're paying for that script. So, I mean, if they can afford to give these companies a kickback, that money should be a discount off the patient's medication, never mind giving it to the guy that signed your script.
Well, according to Bryn Williams-Jones, he's a professor at the University of Montreal on bioethics, and he trains doctors on the conflict of interests things. And he says they're kickbacks, straight up. He says these are kickbacks. Let's be blunt. That's what they are.
Yeah, well, there's no way around it. You can scramble this up like an omelet all day long, and it doesn't matter. It comes down to the fact that these companies that are claiming to be medical prescribing companies are getting payment off of every time you fill your prescription from the person that they advised you to buy your prescription from. Mm-hmm. That is 100% a kickback.
Yep. Well, some of the company's executives say that the payments are standard practice.
Yeah, that good news. Yeah. Doesn't that just make it all better?
That makes it all better. That's right. Nothing to see here, people.
Is that a reason? Is that a logic behind it? Is that justification? Does that make it right?
No, it doesn't.
Well, exactly. So why even bother saying it? If it's standard practice in the industry, then this is a system that has gone unchecked for far too long.
Yeah, well, according to the CEO of Vivo Cannabis, Barry Fishman, he says clinics do receive income from the fees that some provinces, though not all provinces, pay their doctors, but the largest chunk of the revenue comes from the producer payments. Because they here in Ontario, you can go to some of these clinics and OHIP pays for it.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And in those instances, those clinics usually demand to see the patient every 3 months so that they can get their payment from OHIP to see that patient. So there's no need for the cannabis companies to be paying these clinics a kickback.
Well, here's a perfect
They're being paid by
example.
Health Canada already.
Here's a perfect example, right here in the article. Canada House chain cannabis clinics. In 3 months ending July the 31st, all but $100,000 of the $1.2 million in revenue was from the LPs. 100,000 was from being paid fees through the government for the doctor's visits and stuff that go ahead.
That's right. So they made $100,000 in legitimate legal fees, and that's what they should have made for each patient consultation under the guise of Health Canada's regulations, what we pay for OHIP in this province. So that is the base amount. But
they made $1.1 million. Yep, they made $1.1 million.
$1 million in kickbacks from the LPs to operate a medical clinic.
Yeah.
And,
there's some numbers there.
And it's going unchecked. And this is happening all over the place, which is why I always tell people, do your homework. Right. Decide in advance if you are signing with an LP system. Decide in advance which LP you want. If the clinic or doctor that you go to has an issue with you signing with an LP of your choice, find a new avenue, because what they're doing is illegal.
Yeah. It's just, it's restricting patients where they can access.
Yeah.
It's not good. No, not good. And talking about patient access, our next story is, some people say it improves patient access. Some people says, it won't even touch us with a 100-foot pole. And that's the fact that Shoppers Drug Mart is now selling medicinal cannabis online.
Well, we saw this coming, I think, a mile away months and months ago when Shoppers Drug Mart first threw their hat in the ring and announced that they were interested parties in medical cannabis in Canada. And that was prior to legalization taking effect in October. So I think we've been watching this situation unfold with legalization in Canada. And a lot of people have been saying, okay, we have recreational across Canada with provinces that have brick and mortar stores for the most part, other than a couple like us in Ontario. But for the most part, there's brick and mortar stores for people to go to. But there is no place for patients to go to currently within the system. And that needed to change. And here we have Shoppers Drug Mart. That's right.
Yeah, I think Robert Ory touched on that, was the lawyer during the Pace Radio show. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I look at this as the beginning of the new cannabis medicinal dispensaries.
Yes. Yeah. I do as well. I think that
they can discuss medical part stuff with you, whereas retail can't.
That's right. So this will be the place that you can talk to a pharmacist. Hopefully the pharmacists will become educated. Where they are going to obtain that education from is another question, and how factual and knowledgeable it'll be is another question as well.
They are being trained. I know
they
that
are
for a fact.
Trained. We'll see what the outcome of that is. But they will have some information at least, and they will be able to relay what information they do have.
Yeah. Now, just so you know, this online only sales is just for Ontario to start with.
Yeah, that's how they're starting it off. Online, Ontario, I guess we're a little pilot project for them here.
Exactly.
It will evolve into brick and mortar stores as the recreational stores open as well.
Patients will be required to take a medical document to a pharmacy and to begin the process. So the medical document, they say they call it here a prescription, but Health Canada doesn't recognize it as a prescription. It's just a medical recommendation. So whatever you want to call it, it's still a piece of paper with a doctor's signature on it. Right. And that gets things going. They say specialized advisors will then contact the patients, review their medical history, and provide support with online registration and product selection. So you can't do that at a retail store.
No, you can't do that at a retail store, not at all. There'll be no support and no direction on what you're buying through retail. So that is a large advantage for the patient-based community. But you have to remember now, these guys will wind up, I guess, having a supply from various LPs.
10. They have 10 licensed producers.
They have 10 licensed producers, products on hands. So for patients that do use the LP system, this could be a huge advantage because now you have a choice from various LPs instead of having to register with just one LP and be stuck with whatever they have in stock. You could have a choice of a larger variety of products out there from a base like Shoppers Drug Mart that has all of them.
Like I say, I go to my doctor, and my doctor signs me for like a prescription, as they call it here, for cannabis. I take it in like a regular prescription into these guys, and they get the process started. Whereas with the other ones, they send it right from the office. I was going somewhere with this, and I've lost my train of thought.
Lots of plans, lots of choice, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. That's what I was going at. Was that if you go to, as our previous story said, the kickback story, some places only allow you access to one or maybe two or three licensed producers. They don't allow you a whole array. Whereas here you are getting access to 10 producers.
That's right. And all in one location. That's been an issue for a lot of people that sign with legal producers in the medical community. They'll sign up with, one company, and when they signed up, they had 6 strains available. 2 months later, everything's sold out and there's only 1 strain available and nothing they sell works. Well, now what do I got to do? I have to go back to the doctor. I have to get them to transfer my script to a different LP that hopefully will have the medication in stock that I want. So the advantage of using a Shoppers Drug Mart type situation, you have the advantage of having 10 LP stock available to you at any given time.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And you're not having to switch suppliers.
Right. You don't have to go back to your doctor and change LPs and do all of the whole rigmarole, and it can take weeks for all of that to take place before you be able to order your meds. So for people that use the LP system, this could give them a very good advantage.
I also see here that it's not only going to provide product, but it's also going to supply accessories. Does that mean that Shoppers Drug Mart is going to start selling bongs?
Vaporizers? Bongs and shatterizers available at Shoppers.
Yes, right? There you go. You just never know. That could happen.
Oh, too funny.
We've seen stranger things.
We have. Welcome to 2019. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, I think.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, it will be. And they're talking about roller coasters. I see in our next story here, they're talking about bulk discount pricing.
Yeah, people are that are in the know have kind of been spreading the word around, and people that are coming into the legal system are now looking at it saying, well, hey, what's going on here? This isn't how we buy stuff. Price is supposed to go down the more you buy. How come there isn't per ounce prices available through the legal producing system?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what's happening. Parliament Budget Office discovered, some things itself when they were exploring the cost, and they said the unit price of an ounce is 40% lower than the unit price of a quantity under 5 grams.
Yeah.
So, like the PBO knew this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to know this, but the LPs aren't acknowledging that fact at all, and haven't based their pricing system on the way that it's been done for decades upon decades through anybody in the know that's been a cannabis consumer and a cannabis purchaser over the years. Anybody who ever bought marijuana from a dealer, you've probably experienced this. A single gram might cost $10, whereas 3.5 grams will be $30, representing a $5 savings, says the article. The next size up is 7 grams, which is a quarter, might be $60, and so on. So, your price goes down. By the time you get to an ounce, you're not paying, $300 for an ounce. You're only paying maybe $190 to $200 for that ounce. So the price has gone down significantly.
It's gone down, but
LPs.
I'm not hearing any good stories how that an ounce of cannabis from the OCS store is cheap. Not yet. But yeah, they do have a built-in reduction there, but I can't see it being, would it be the same? I don't know. I haven't even gone to the OCS store. Website.
I've been on the website and I've had a look, but I've also got experience with the LP system as a whole as a patient. I order from them for other patients, as well as for myself for certain medications that I don't grow myself. There are some strains that they carry that I don't grow, and I purchase them from there. So I am very familiar with the system, and they don't have any relief in pricing at all. It is by the gram all the way up the board, no matter how much you buy.
Yeah, exactly. And as the article here, which is in the Leaf Cannabis News, at the end it says, if the policy wonks and business suits behind Canada's legal cannabis market are serious about beating the black market on price, the issue of bulk discounts deserves a closer look. Otherwise, the long-time cannabis users accustomed to these discounts will have yet another reason to stick to their regular suppliers.
Yeah. That's right. And that's what we're seeing right now. There no bulk discount on orders at all. It's by the gram pricing up the board. And then you add regular tax, then you add the excise tax, then you add delivery. And then you wait 3 days to 2 weeks to receive your product. There's a breaking point there that comes rather quickly when you add it all up.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And some provinces have other fees, different fees.
Yeah, there's other provincial excise taxes in certain provinces as well that are added on to a whole top. So, if their whole goal is to compete with the black market, so to speak, and underground cannabis, they're going to have to do better.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Okay, let's move on to our last story before we go to break.
Sure. This brings us up to my neck of the woods. We're going to come north for a few minutes and talk about a situation going on in the Sudbury area First Nations territory. A Wahnapitae First Nations dispensary two of them were raided this past week on native ground. And this took place in cooperation with Native police as well as the OPP. It was a joint raid on 2 places on First Nations territory, First Nations Medicinal as well as Creator's Choice Natural Health Solutions were both raided this past week. Yeah,
they say that they seized approximately $110,000 in cannabis, bud, hash, edibles, some cash. As well.
Not a good situation. I have a bit of an inside scoop on this because I am familiar with a couple of the operators that are involved in this story. First Nations Medicinal was extremely upset by the situation. They've been operating without issue for quite a long time. Now, the newest people to open up shop on the block decided to go off First Nations territory for sales, and they were advertising delivery that was available outside of First Nations land. That's how the OPP became involved, and it became a joint task force because these people chose to go off native land with their sales. So sad news for the ones that were operating within the guidelines of the First Nations territory. They're without issue for all this time to have to go through this now.
Yeah, exactly. When we're seeing so many other places accepting it, and then and obviously this reserve, the Band Council has an issue, so there must be more to the story. And actually, there is a little bit more, and we'll touch on that after break.
Absolutely, it's dab time.
That's right. It's time for our medication break. Kim and I will be right back after our session. Meanwhile, you, our listeners, will hear an NBC report on a cannabis delivery company and some Gitmo who wants to grow some weed. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
San Francisco is a place where things happen. The city by the bay has always been an early adopter. And that's never been more true than now. Startups flourish here. We want to show you one that amazed even us. For if you live here, you can get marijuana delivered to your door legally in 15 minutes or less.
You know, my father was a milkman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You know, it was all about meeting supply and demand.
Absolutely.
Well, you don't have to pick up the empties.
No, I don't.
Meet Eric James, a 21st century delivery man. The smartphone on his dashboard tells him where to go and the fastest route to get there.
On the busy days, I will have like 4 people stacked up in my queue.
Eric is a marijuana delivery man, and he uses software from the company Ease.
This is a far cry from meeting somebody in an alley or a dark place to
a far cry, yes.
Exchange money for your dime bag or whatever it was back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's better and it's safer for everybody.
Medical marijuana, on demand, delivered in minutes, and completely legal.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Meet Jane Mitchell, a busy mother of 2. A doctor recommended she use medical marijuana.
Looks like you had the free code.
Nice.
Awesome.
Sweet.
And what did you get today?
Okay, so I got some goodies here that are great for soothing any pains. A chocolate bar that's delicious.
Mm-hmm. You look at this then as a delivery of medicine?
As a delivery of medicine, yeah. Healthy medicine. Better than something over the counter that could have negative side effects for my body, and, you know, it's delicious.
Over here we have the operations team.
We stopped in to see the brains behind Ease, Keith McCarty. In California, he saw a massive marijuana market practically untouched by high tech.
It's the fastest growing industry in the world. And, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunity for the industry if done correctly, and Ease wants to be a pioneer in driving that.
Technology is helping Ease determine exactly what kind of marijuana customers want. It's what online businesses do. Anticipate your needs, your desires.
Netflix. When you go to Netflix and it's like, because you watched this, we recommend this for you, Harry.
Sure.
It's like, wow, they know a lot about my tastes. We're building the same thing. So we're analyzing the data as it comes in.
McCarty is no stranger to successful Silicon Valley startups.
At the end of the day, we're just Yammer.
He was a founding team member at Yammer, a sort of Facebook for business, which was sold to Microsoft for more than $1 billion. After that, McCarty didn't have to work if he didn't want to. But it did get him thinking. Many dispensaries were far away from customers because of zoning laws.
We actually pulled data, and over 65% of patients in the Bay Area were driving over 40 minutes to be able to get access to cannabis, to their medicine.
And when you saw that, you thought?
I thought there's a need to create something.
Wait a minute. No. How about Eureka, I have found it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
I wanna grow weed in my backyard. I'll do it right. It won't be hard to keep the neighborhood kids from finding out. I'll build a fence so high. I wanna grow weed and you will see it's good for our security. They say the drug trade benefits the terrorists, so why not just grow your own? I wanna grow weed like Washington, just like he did at Mount Vernon. He even separated males from female plants. It's written in his diaries.
Hey, we're back for a medication session plus a quick check on the dog. I always got to check on the dog. We are live here at 420radio.ca, and Kim, you and I still got lots of news to cover.
We sure do. We're not going to leave First Nations land in Northern Ontario just quite yet. We're going to hear a little bit about a story here on one of the other dispensaries that was raided. The Creator's Choice Natural Health Solutions, Derek Roque, has a lot to say.
He sure does. He talks about the high-quality cannabis that they sell, the partnership he's made with other Ojibwe weed companies, the high-quality packaging his products come in, and all the people they've helped discover the healing power of the plant.
Yeah, he gets quoted here as saying, "We were robbed by the police, not raided." He says the charges against him, particularly the allegation of obstruct and assault a police officer, he says they're absurd. This is the second time Creator's Choice has been raided since it opened just a little over a year ago. Another store on the other side of his community north of Sudbury, First Nations Medicinal, was also raided that we spoke of in the last story.
Yeah, well, he believes that the OPP, who worked in concert with the local police there, that they have no right to arrest him.
Yeah, he says it's against his national right as a First Nations individual on First Nations land, and he doesn't really recognize the fact that the arrest took place.
Yeah, exactly. He says the charges are based on the fact that I'm going to mess that up. That's right, there we go. First Nations has not officially voted to allow cannabis stores on its territory, and repeated that phone calls to the First Nations were not being returned.
Yeah, well, they haven't quite voted yet. They were told to wait, and potentially that's what they're doing. They're waiting because there is no vote that has taken place in Wahnapitae First Nations yet. So they're kind of on the fence. First Nations there haven't said, no, we don't want it, but they haven't embraced it open arms either. In the meantime, dispensaries are opening up on the territory, and they're basically being left alone by First Nations Band Council.
He says here that he applied for a permit over a year ago, and has also applied for a production permit on the same property. But the band council says they want to work with him, but they really haven't. It's been taking over a year to do this. They really haven't been doing a lot by the looks of it. And says that he was surprised by the fact that the police showed up at his place.
Yeah, the band council seems to taking a very long time in making up its mind. They're sitting on the fence, basically. They're taking an approach where they're saying, well, let's wait and see what happens elsewhere before we make up our mind. And whatever happens here, we're just going to kind of let it happen. So the fact that First Nations police teamed up with OPP for this raid is surprising. Is it a sign that the band has chosen a direction and it's maybe not the one that people were expecting? We don't really know. We don't really know if the band was part of this, or was it just strictly, the police went to Indigenous police and did this. We really don't have a whole lot of details on it, and I would think they're going to be forthcoming. So this is going to be a story I'm going to keep an eye on.
Oh, yes, we will, for sure. All right, and talking about retail cannabis, Ontario had their lottery last Friday.
They most certainly did. People lined up to put in an application to join the available pot shops, they're calling them, to open up. There's only 25 lucky entrepreneurs that were chosen to operate cannabis sales places in Ontario. 25 in all of Ontario. I recall at the beginning of all of this when Ford got in, something about 200. But now we're down to 25. On a side note, as a Northern Ontario, I'm quite a resident. I'm quite dismayed to say only 2 shops in an area that spans from North Bay to Thunder Bay, including
just down the street, isn't it?
Ste. Marie and Sudbury, all the way out to the Quebec border.
Everything up there is really close.
2. Yeah, we get 2. So, you're maybe 6-hour drive. You'll be fine, right? You're looking at up to 6-hour drive. And the lottery, I mean, there's no guarantee that they will be spaced apart. No. They could wind up being in the same city.
And this is not a license. What this is, the lottery allowed these people to apply for the licenses.
That's
those
right.
First 25. So they still have to. They still have to pass all the criminal checks, all the financing, all that stuff has to be done. So they've created waiting lists, and the waiting list is quite a bit bigger than the ones who that are getting the go ahead to keep going. I can see some people falling.
16,905 people, corporations, or partnerships that participated in the lottery. Yep. And they were allowed to put in bids. So that's a lot of corporations that want on this.
It cost $75 for them to do this part of the process.
That's right.
The next step, they have to do a $6,000 deposit that is non-refundable. Plus, they have to have their $50,000 line of credit letter from the bank.
Yeah, you've got to have $50,000 available in cash, ready to go at any given time. So $56,000 for the next step. You've got to have that money in place and ready to go. Yeah. And that's not including securing your space, building the shop, stocking it, hiring employees.
That's right. Exactly.
Design, advertising.
Yeah, and then now if you get through the whole process and come April the 1st, like you've got your license, you've got approval and all that stuff, and you don't open April the 1st, you get fined $12,500. And then there's a short time period. If you're not open by then, there's another $12,000 fine. So within a month's time, they'll use up that $50,000.
Yeah, and it's got to be.
If you're not open in a month. And now let's say you go to open up April the 1st, and there's no stock.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Do you open your store? Do you open your store, an empty store, so you avoid a $12,000?
You have no choice. You have to have the store staffed and employees in there, and generating your rent and your hydro and all of it. You have to.
Yeah.
So you've got to have the money to put out for a loss, because let's face it, we can look to other provinces that are operating their stores right now as a guide to how this is going to go down when the stores are open in Ontario. And the simple fact of the matter is there isn't enough product coming out of the licensed producers to supply all of these stores that we have currently. And Ontario isn't even in the game yet. So the largest province in the country, by the way. Yeah, and we're not even in the game yet. So if there's not enough out there now, there isn't going to be enough in April either. It takes a long time to grow cannabis. Definitely more than a couple of months before it's ready to go packaged and on the shelves. So nothing is going to change between now and April when ours open up. Stores in other regions are down to operating 2 to 3 days a week. Some of them are operating on half days, and several have already started laying off employees. So that's what you're getting into.
Now, let's move on to our next story, where they talked about some of the people who got these go-aheads to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing they've done is they've released the names on the list and corporation numbers, but we don't know anything about these people. We don't know what locations they're going to be in. It's only done by region.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Now, according to Trina Fraser, she thinks that there might be 4 or 5 stores open by April 1st because there's so much stuff that has to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of the others will incur penalties.
Yeah, which is a lot of money into the government's pocket, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Now, what about? Have you been seeing some stories out there about some of these people who have won, as far as what their experiences are, and did any people win this chance that we know?
Not that I've heard. Have you?
I don't know anybody from the cannabis community that won on the lottery.
No, me neither. I don't recognize a single name on any of the lists personally. Many in the cannabis community don't use their authentic names, so that isn't out of the ordinary. But I think anybody that is an activist or a current entrepreneur in the system, in the gray market area that did apply, they would have been making announcements by now, hooting and hollering, saying, we got one, we got one, we got one. And I have not heard a peep.
No, I haven't heard a peep either. But I do know
there
that
are some out there that applied. And
yeah.
Everybody is jumping for joy at this point, and no names on the list are recognizable at this point.
There was almost 14,000 bids in Toronto, over 13,000 in the Greater Toronto Area, another 8,500 for you up in the north, Kim. 2 people.
Yeah. Two.
Out of 8,500 people. And then over 12,000 in the west end of the province.
Yeah, we got 2.
Yeah.
2.
That's it, 2.
Toronto
And then don't forget, these people can only choose centers that have population of over 50,000 people.
That's right. So that whittles it down to maybe 3 or 4 cities in the north.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know there's a lot of the smaller communities around here that are doing the voting and opting in and opting out. And my town has their meeting tomorrow, so I'll be attending that. But yeah, they have to, just because you live in a certain area, you may not end up where you think you're going to end up.
That's right. That's right. Just because your township agreed to have one, don't mean you're going to get one. The majority of the towns and the population and the municipalities that are here in the north are small towns that are usually connected, by short distances. So you'll have several small towns in a small area, and they're all connected. Everybody, shops and different facilities are available in different towns. So you use the entire area. It's just not populated in between like Toronto is and other larger cities. You guys just have houses in between those spaces that we don't have currently. It's more of a sparse area. So all of those regions, you're SOL. You're not going to see a bricks and mortar store available in your region. I would give it at least 2 years before we see an expansion into smaller communities.
Yeah, at least. There's one article out there that we didn't grab that was talking about 3 years minimum. That's one of the people within the industry is saying a 3-year shortage
before they get a regular steady supply of cannabis to support a booming industry that this country can definitely handle.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. All right. Let's move on from that to a story that it's really disturbing. I think when a group of friends lose a friend to cancer, and then they do a fundraiser and raise money, and they go to donate it to a place where their friend really talked highly of. and the place turns their money down.
Yeah, this is a heartbreaking situation. I know these people that raised this money. I know the individual that this was all about. I followed the situation as it was happening when the fundraiser was happening. It was a fantastic initiative. And then kaboom, the door got slammed shut in a way that nobody was really expecting. What we're talking about here is a situation where a man who passed away was part of the community, and he passed away from cancer. During his final days, he was in a facility that allowed and actually embraced cannabis consumption as part of the regime for his end-of-life care. It was part of his medicine for his end-of-life care, and he used it at this facility, cannabis, and he used people that were part of his support system, were from a cannabis community there in his town. And
Calgary Cannabis Club.
The Calgary Cannabis Club, and they were part of his support system for obtaining his meds, using his meds, and for continuing to live and get out and all kinds of things. Well, in his death, they honored him by holding a fundraiser. They had stuff that was for sale and was auctioned off, and donations came in, and it was all going to the hospice that took him in his final days, took care of him, and going to cancer research and going to this hospice. So they gathered $6,000.
Yeah, $6,000
to donate in this man's name. And they took it to the cancer center, and the cancer center rejected it because it came
the Alberta
from the cannabis.
Alberta Health Services.
Yeah, they rejected it because it came from a cannabis club. They said, we don't want your money.
Yeah, and like the Alberta Health, that's a whole provincial-wide service. Like, it's just...
How do you
it's just ridiculous.
Somebody's name. How do they have the right to do that?
It says it won't accept cannabis. In a statement, the Alberta Health Services, it won't accept cannabis philanthropy until consultations with fundraising foundations and Health Canada on the subject are completed later this year.
Later this year. Are you kidding me? At that point, cannabis is a legal consumable product in this country for a year's time. Not to mention that it's a legal medicine in this province or in this country for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
What is there to consult?
They don't have a policy on it, basically, is what it comes down to.
Do they need one?
Apparently.
I don't understand why they need one. It's a donation.
Well, like I said, they want to do consultations with the fundraising foundations, like other groups out there, as well as Health Canada. And they said until that is complete, they're not going to take anything. They're going to, just not going to take it.
Unbelievable.
They're going to defer them.
Unbelievable. Well, I encourage people to reach out and voice your concerns about this kind of a situation. This is a post or an article from the Calgary Herald, and it was on January the 7th, 2019. Definitely reach out to the Calgary Cannabis Club if possible. The Tom Baker Cancer Center is who it was going to be designated to, and the Alberta Cancer Society, and let them know your feelings on this.
Yeah. This isn't very nice. A nice tall stigma is still there. It's going to take a long time to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Okay, Kim, let's move on to our next story.
Sounds good. We're going to jump over to New Brunswick and talk about the retail situation there.
That's right. It seems like things aren't going very well, and some people have been laid off as the New Brunswick cannabis retailer lays off workers. They don't have the supply. They don't have the stock. They don't have product there to put on shelves.
There's no need for staff when you're closed 3 days a week and have no product to stock on your shelves. Cannabis from New Brunswick said most of the about 60 layoff people involved people with seasonal contracts, but some are part-time or full-time employees as well. There's just nothing to do. How do you keep employees with no product to sell?
Yeah, it's too bad. People are losing now. People, they were talking about how good it is because it's creating jobs. Now people are losing jobs.
Yeah, everybody was very excited to be working in a legal cannabis industry, and only the government can lose out on cannabis.
Yeah. Well, and the spokesperson says here, basically, we're not going to bring these people back because they say that supply issues have been a problem, but based on traffic and interaction time with customers, we are confident that even as supply continues to stabilize and we expand our portfolio, that our current team has the capacity to deliver the expected customer experience. So they're not even planning to bring these people back.
Amazing. They're just downsizing already. They say, no. We can sell what we need to sell with the people that are here because there's not really much to it. Here, you order what you want. I hand you a package. You walk out the door. So how much brain cells does that take?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's yeah. I'm sure these people were really happy, getting a job, working
Absolutely.
in the cannabis industry, and now they're looking for work again. They go through all that training, and here we are a few months later, 3 months later, and they're looking for work again.
This happens in all new developing and evolving industries, right? They start off grand with lots of employees, and before you know it, they're downsizing. It's just happening on the fast track with cannabis because the low supply is pushing that envelope forward from the get-go. So we're seeing it happening on the onset with cannabis, this whole evolution of the downsizing happening almost simultaneously to the hiring spree.
Yeah. It's too bad.
It is.
Well, Kim, it's break time.
Alrighty.
Time for another medication break.
Sounds good to me. Okay,
we'll be right back while you get to hear more about that cannabis delivery company. You should listen to that, Kim. That's interesting. They're talking about big company, big money. And then you're also going to hear some more of that song, I Want to Grow Weed by Gitmo. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
By some estimates, illegal marijuana in California is a $12 billion industry. As recreational marijuana becomes fully legal in January, investors expect a windfall in profits.
If this is such a big market, is it inevitable that big tobacco or big alcohol, as some people have suggested to me,
or just
come
anything.
in?
I've had more people come to me that want to get in the business. What's going to happen? How do I get in? How do I get in early? There's a lot of money to be made here. There's no doubt about it.
Opportunity, to be sure, for businesses like Ease. But not everyone is excited about the growing availability of marijuana.
You're not a fan of this stuff.
No, I'm really not a fan.
Dr. Anna Lemke treats patients at Stanford University's Addiction Center. Her biggest concern? Marijuana's effects, particularly on the young.
You can't even talk about the harms that we know it does cause, like the potential for addiction, because people are absolutely convinced that it's medicinal.
I guess the thing that's so beautifully ironic in this is the person who knows most about the harmful effects of marijuana is indeed in favor of legalization.
Yes. The people who are harmed by it are not getting a piece of the enormous dollars that big marijuana is generating. And one way to, make that better, believe it or not, is to legalize it, make the separation between medicinal and recreational use, tax it, and, help those who are harmed.
Ease founder Keith McCarty has brought in an old buddy from Yammer, Jim Patterson, to run the company. His aim? He wants Ease to be even bigger than Uber for pot.
Is your goal to be the Amazon of marijuana?
Yep.
You got it.
Simple as that.
Yeah. When you think about like what Amazon represents, right? Amazon represents convenience, choice.
Wow. Have you ever been in a business like this?
I actually have. It's this thing in Silicon Valley. We have this term called product market fit. And really what that means is, does your product really resonate in the market? It's very clear that this is something people want.
But Patterson and McCarty have even bigger ideas. Their business dreams reach far beyond marijuana. What if patients could see doctors or get medicine for high cholesterol, diabetes, or even arthritis without ever leaving home?
In a lot of ways, the broader healthcare is a lot easier to address than the cannabis market.
Right.
So we're almost tackling the harder one first.
And if the hard work is already done, just how big could this startup end up? The biggest company in America.
Absolutely, the opportunity is big today with cannabis, and that's our 100% focus.
Right.
And it could potentially be even bigger if that's an area that we decide to go in terms of bringing on other types of medicine.
It's almost infinite.
Yeah, it could be, $1 trillion company.
Yes, he said $1 trillion.
Hey, sorry guys, this is the part you guys can't hear.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
I wanna grow weed, it's just a plant. The stupid government says I can't. They'd rather I get hooked on prescription drugs or drink myself to death. I wanna grow weed and you will say, hey, that smells good. Will you smoke the J? You'll find that I am most hospitable. To not would just be rude. I wanna grow weed, I must confess, it's my pursuit of happiness. I've got no medical condition to relieve. I really just wanna get stoned.
Hey, we're back from another medication session, and we are the Reefer Reporters, and we are live here at 420radio.ca. Well, Kim, we got one more segment to do with some more news. You all ready? Got your tea there now?
Got my tea there, had my dab. Life is good. Life is good. We're going to fly on out to talk about a little bit about friends of mine in Gibsons, BC.
That's right. It seems S&M Sweet Shop, Doug and Michelle Sikora have received a temporary use permit for them to continue selling their medicinal goodies to patients.
Yes, the Gibsons Council just gave them their it's known as a TUP, temporary use permit. This means that they're a legal shop. They had a big meeting about it. They asked for some public input. A lot of patients went out and spoke on behalf of Doug and Michelle and talked about the medicinal aspects and the life-saving remedies that they're offering to patients in the area and the great need that the area has for their services. Everybody spoke very, very highly of the shop and Doug and Michelle personally. And the council decided, okay, we're going to give you the permit and you guys can stay open and you're exempt from the law for that, for now, at least.
Yes. And there was only one person on council who voted against the idea of issuing them a temporary use permit.
There's always right.
That was that was the mayor.
Yeah, the mayor is not a big fan, I guess.
Yeah,
but everybody on council is backing them because the council members, hey, they're listening to their constituents, and the constituents are the ones that are using the shop.
Yeah. Well, he wanted he wanted them to apply for a provincial license just like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, he didn't get his way. And we're happy about that for sure. Love Doug and Michelle. Love everything that they do out there in Gibsons, BC. Doug known as the Candy Man to many. These guys are helping out a lot of patients. 2 legs and 4. They do patient remedies or dog remedies as well for animals and everything else. They're great people with a great heart. And they produce some great products. So I'm glad to see this big win for them.
Products that they can't get in the rec market.
That's right.
And they're not available through licensed producers yet. Okay. Right. Now, from my understanding, From one article I read on this, they may have to change the, I guess their not their logo, but their
paint job, their exterior paint job.
Yeah, because
the front of the building. The front is painted. Well, it's bright pink, and it's got attractive, bright colored balls on it, and it looks like a candy store. It looks like a place that sells wonderful treats and sweets, and it's very inviting and eye-catching. And some members of the public are a little bit concerned that it's attractive to children. So they're discussing perhaps some changes on the frontage, but either way, they're staying open.
Yes, correct, exactly. And, if they have to make that change, they can stay open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I'm sure the discussions will come along. They're very amicable people, and they just want to do what's right for patients in their area and the community at large in Gibsons, BC.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree. Well, we're going to go from a good news story to our next one, which is disturbing. It got a lot of people were pretty upset about this, and there's been a lot of shares on that. And this is the fact that a Toronto man lost his driver's license after disclosing that to his doctor that he was using cannabis as a medicine.
He's using self-medicating with cannabis. He's using cannabis as a medicine on a daily basis to fight, the extreme conditions that go hand in hand with Crohn's disease. Al, I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a medicine that he's using it for to combat the nausea and various other aspects that goes hand in hand with Crohn's disease, such as things like allowing him to eat, which is what you can't do. So his doctor reported him to the Ministry of Transportation and recommended his license be revoked for his use of this medicine. I mean, this is a catastrophic failure of the medical system and patient-doctor confidentiality. His consumption in no means impaired his ability to operate a motor vehicle. No. And this doctor implying that it did is definitely a breach of ethics. I can't believe that this is happening, and it just casts such a bad light on things for doctors and for the general public at large with trust issues. We're at the dawn of legalization, and we're supposed to be trusting that we're not going to be getting in trouble for consumption of this plant anymore. Medicinal cannabis has been on the books in Canada for almost 2 decades now, used as a medicine legally in this country. To have a doctor do this at this day and age, it's mind-blowing.
Not only does he deal with Crohn's disease, but he's also survived 2 forms of cancer. He's claustrophobic, and he has anxiety.
Yeah.
So, I don't imagine any of this helped his anxiety or his Crohn's disease whatsoever. But he says the first time the doctor warned him that his driver's license for his marijuana use could be, reason for it, but he wasn't going to report him. Just
he
warned
said
him
several times.
Yeah, and then he turns around and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the guy gets what? He got a phone call from a doctor who had announced that he was contacting the MTO to have his driver's license revoked.
Yeah. I mean, the guy absolutely lost his mind. By now, he was so pissed off, he did the right thing. He contacted the College of Physicians and Surgeons to file a complaint against the doctor. The college is investigating whether or not the man's privacy was been violating of his Privacy Act. In the meantime, he also contacted the MTO, and he submitted medical evidence about his medicinal use of him using this as a medicinal medicine here, and that it didn't impede his driving at all, from another medical professional. And the MTO reinstated the man's driver's license within 2 weeks, which is like a huge win for this guy, because that doesn't happen with MTO. Nothing gets done in 2 weeks at MTO.
That's right.
You know, so that's a huge win for this guy. The MTO absolutely recognized that the doctor that reported him did so against regulations.
Yeah, they said the letter that he received from the MTO said that evidence of medical condition that would affect your ability to safely operate a motor vehicle was the reason why he lost it. So they said, stop driving. You must not drive while you're suspended. Like, you know, all of a sudden get a letter like that after a doctor tells you that, you know, I'm not going to report you.
Well, it has no effect on his driving.
Yeah.
He doesn't consume while driving.
Yeah.
He consumes at night at home after work.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
I mean,
now they say that under Section 203 of the Highway Traffic Act, there are now mandatory reporting requirements for high-risk medical conditions, vision conditions, and functional impairments. And it says the rules now apply to physicians, optimists, and nurse practitioners.
Yeah,
so
but
they have to,
if
but this guy wasn't.
Patient,
yeah, exactly.
If you're a patient, then none of that applies, because it's not an illicit drug, and it does not interfere with your everyday ability to do your job if you're not doing it on the job and you're only doing it after work. So therefore, none of those conditions apply here.
Yeah. Now this guy's license was suspended for marijuana use. He said that he wasn't given any recommendations or diagnosis by that doctor.
That's right.
Whatsoever.
The doctor never did anything.
Yeah.
Except report him.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
I mean, this guy needs his license revoked.
Yeah, as he says, you know, you're supposed to trust the doctor, and he doesn't. Obviously, he's lost a lot of trust in this one.
Absolutely, and the press coverage and the amount of talk that's going on in cannabis circles about this particular case is overwhelmingly high. Like, I mean, everybody is talking about this case, and it goes to trust.
Yeah, over 12,000 shares just on this one article alone. Never mind all the other articles that have been written.
And every news outlet is reporting on it, so they've all got equal amount of shares on it. I mean, it's a viral story for sure. And it goes to trust. I mean, we have a situation where we're in a situation in Canada on another matter, just briefly, where we're not trusting the police department at this time because of new powers that they have over the general population and consumption of different products. Now we have doctors that are reporting us if we come out to them about our medical consumption use to our family physicians.
And here we're trying. Here we're trying to get more people to speak up, talk to your doctor about it. Yeah. You got a doctor that's doing this, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, how are we enabling trust by anybody? Nobody is enabling trust here by anybody. We can't trust the cops. We can't trust the doctor. Who are we supposed to trust?
Yeah, ourselves. Ourselves. All right, let's move on. Let's move on before you get all really hot under the collar.
Yeah. Moving on. United States of America has a cute little ditty going on down there.
That's right.
As we all know that they've been looking at rescheduling or decriminalizing or legalizing, whatever term you prefer, cannabis down in the United States. Well, officially, there is now a bill on the House floor. And what did they number it? Number HR 420 is the bill that is on the floor to legalize cannabis in the U.S.
Hand rolled,
Bill.
Hand rolled 420. Yeah. It was the new bill. It says here the new bill filed in the House on Wednesday by Republican or Representative Earl Blumenauer. He's a Democrat. He says is titled the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol Act, and if passed, it would remove cannabis from the Federal Substance Act.
which is a huge step for the United States. It's about time a bill like this reached the House floor. The bill number is a bit of tongue-in-cheek. The issue is very serious, the article says. If cannabis laws are outdated currently and has endless impact and negative impacts on our lives every day, which is more than a true statement for sure. This is the first time that a 420 has worked its way to the official legislative numbering.
No, it's not. It isn't the first time.
It isn't the first time.
No, California had a bill numbered SB 420 back in 2003. In 2017, Rhode Island, a senator there filed a cannabis legalization bill given the designation of S420.
Yeah.
And on Capitol Hill, the first time the House voted on a measure to block the Department of Justice from interfering with state medical cannabis laws, it was through an amendment considered under 2003's Roll Call 420. It's a serious law. People are going to jail for this, but yet it almost looks like they're having a bit of a fun with the number.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek in there, and it seems to happen quite frequently in the United States with, changing laws in different areas. They like to use the number 420. I guess it's a good acknowledgement to that they at least have some clue as to what they're talking about. They're changing other stuff, similarly renamed laws, alcohol and tobacco and marijuana tax and trade bureau within the Department of Treasury would also have oversight authority, as with the Food and Drug Administration, and federal permits would be issued for cultivating, packaging, selling, and importing cannabis, marijuana in the United States if this passes.
Yeah, that's right. This is that shipping or transporting cannabis into states that have not legalized it would be prohibited.
So it's up to still individual states to give the go-ahead, but it would cover people that are in currently legal states, wouldn't have fears of federal oversight coming in and trashing everything up.
Yeah, it's interesting. They say this new bill is the third piece of standalone cannabis legislation filed in the new Congress, which began last week. Third piece in a week.
In a week. Welcome to 2019 with a new Congress in the United States. I think we're going to see a lot more forward-thinking, liberal-type bills and initiatives filed with the new Congress down there.
Yeah, I think so too. But as we're seeing in our next story, Ohio, they're talking about a supply shortage for the medical cannabis. Never mind adding recreational on top of it.
Yeah, Ohioans are blowing up the phone lines in northeastern Ohio call center, where 15 operators are working for a private company, aptly called Ohio Marijuana Card, and are logging more than 500 calls a day. And the conversations aren't been good.
No, they haven't. They haven't been good whatsoever. And just so you know, my screen's been blanked out.
Ah, okay. Well, Ohio Medical Card, which charges $340 for a doctor's visit and consultation, not including the state's $50 filing fee, says eligible patients are getting medical marijuana cards within 10 minutes of leaving the office. But now there's a shortage of supply, and people are pissed off that they're spent this money and not being able to get medical cannabis.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they want me to subscribe. I haven't got time for that.
You haven't got time for that. I went through this earlier and I took care of it. So, the infrastructure for processing and selling and supply, everything needs to catch up. Demand is very much overwhelming what the dispensaries have on hand. So they're playing catch up with supply down in Ohio.
Yeah, so there you go. That's just for the medical end. Now, does it say anything about how their supply system works?
Not really. It doesn't go into a whole lot of detail, and I only got part of it as well because I didn't pay. So,
okay, yes, there was that option there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do run in that the odd time. It's the first time I know it's actually come up during the show.
Yeah. Well, it happens every once in a while. It happens. But yeah, so problems with the streamlining of the medical system going on in Ohio. I guess supply demand is far outweighing supply, and some of the companies that are assigned for signing up patients are now feeling the wrath of current clients, calls at their call centers being overwhelmed with complaints.
Yes, yeah, I seen that part up until I got that black data screen there. Now, hopefully, well, I don't know, hopefully, but I see here in the next article in South Carolina, they're talking about legalizing the medical use of cannabis, but there's a problem that I don't like, and it was the same thing that happened in Florida, and it says that you won't be allowed to smoke it.
Yeah, where do you consume it? That's a big one, right? They're saying you can't consume it anywhere.
You can't smoke it.
Anywhere. You can't smoke
You can't
it.
even smoke it. You can't even smoke it. Yeah, smoking of cannabis would be prohibited.
So they're talking about oils,
Only
creams,
yeah,
and
yeah.
topicals and lotions and potions.
Here we're waiting. Here we're waiting for another year for approval for these types of things, whereas they're starting off on the other way around.
Yeah, they're starting off with no smoking and only allowing extracts. So different avenue for sure. But a lot of people still like smoking a joint.
For sure.
I mean, that's been the prima facie way of consumption from the beginning of time, pretty much, is people gather and we smoke a joint. So this is still a big problem down there.
Yeah. They say that they're closer than they've ever been before in order to get medical cannabis there. And they say the bill has stiff opposition, most notably from the state's top cop, State Law Enforcement Division Chief Mark Keel. Keel has said the legalization of cannabis for medical use opens a Pandora's box of consequences and shouldn't be legalized in South Carolina until it's legalized federally.
Yeah. They want to. This is a southern state, South Carolina.
Just so you know, he also says that nobody has convinced him that it does anything good for us.
Yeah. Like I said, this is a southern state with the southern cops and southern mentality. They don't buy into it at all. They think it's all a bunch of hooey, and they still stand firm with sheriff's offices and rangers and everything else down there, standing firm in the belief that cannabis is the gateway drug that gets everybody hooked on everything else. They don't acknowledge that we have an endocannabinoid system. They say that's hooey. So, I mean, that's what we're dealing with down there.
72% of South Carolinians are in support of this.
Yeah. The general population is definitely in support. We need the powers that be to catch up. It's happening slowly. It's a step. It's a first step. It's different direction than most others have, places other than Florida have taken. I think them and Florida are the only two that have gone this route. And it's kind of interesting that they went the opposite direction of everybody else. It's not panning out so well in Florida. We'll see how it does in South Carolina.
Yeah. Well, here are some of the things around this bill. Cannabis can't be sold or smoked in leaf form, but can only be used in forms such as vaporized oils, gel caps, suppositories, patches, or topical creams. The cannabis would have to be prescribed by a doctor in a bona fide relationship with the patient. So basically, you just can't show up, get a signature, and leave. With a debilitating medical condition such as PTSD, epilepsy, glaucoma are listed on the bill. Registered patients and caregivers will be able to possess up to 2 ounces of cannabis. Let's see what else. Patients between the age of 18 and 23 must have certification letters from 2 doctors.
Yeah, younger patients would have to have dispensed by a caregiver.
Yeah. Oh, such as a patient. Okay, such as a parent. I thought maybe they wanted a nurse to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no smoking, and I know, like we said, there was a situation like that down in Florida that we followed, and Florida didn't do very good in the courts.
No, they're not doing well in the courts with this at all. And South Carolina, well, I'm sure we'll see similar challenges with their new legislation as well. They're basically doing it this way because of their mindset that cannabis is still a gateway drug, and it's bad for you and it's a drug, and they don't recognize the medicinal value at all, as I said before. And they feel that legalization of medical cannabis is a gateway to recreational legalization. So they're trying to stop the, I guess, smoking aspect of it to stop that from happening.
Yeah. Anyway, for smoking, I know a lot of people may have a bad thing about smoking, but it is one of the fastest ways for patients to get relief.
That's right. Yeah, smoking, vaporization, or drops under the tongue are the quickest way.
Yes, yeah. All right, let's move on to our last story of the day, which sort of sounds similar to what we went through here in Canada, but this is in Switzerland.
Yeah, Switzerland on the cannabis map today. Zurich is looking at a group of penned a position paper stating their desire to decriminalize marijuana for medical and recreational use there. So welcome to the game, Switzerland.
Yeah, now what they want to do, though, is they want to dispense it all through pharmacies.
Yeah, they want it to be owned by the government and pharmacy run. Everything will be done through Swiss's pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, the experts have praised the move, saying it's the right thing to do and the necessary infrastructure and staff already exist.
Yeah.
200. They figure there's about 200,000 people in Switzerland who regularly consume cannabis recreationally, and roughly 40% of them are men.
Yeah. 200,000. What? That's amazing. The president there, I guess Dora is the name, says that there's about 110 Zurich-based pharmacies currently, and they say that the reality of use in Switzerland can no longer be ignored. And she's asked the pharmacists about marijuana and found that they are open to selling cannabis products. So now she wants to work with them to discuss the next steps to make this happen. She says it's urgent and long overdue.
Yeah, she also believes that coffee shop approach that happens in Netherlands would not be ideal for Switzerland. This is why she suggests the pharmacies to take over the sale of cannabis in a regulated market.
Yeah. That way she said that they can spot any problematic consumption patterns could be identified by qualified staff. Once again, people that are making these laws are still looking at this from a criminalization and addiction viewpoint. There is no addiction to cannabis. It's not a problematic consumption when you consume cannabis, and the problem is that view.
Yeah. It's good to see that Switzerland is looking at something, or at least is being requested by somebody within the country. But yeah, we had the situation here in Canada where the pharmacists were against it, and then as things evolved, at one point they turned around and said they were the only ones that should be able to dispense it, and this is what's being said here as well. So who knows? We'll have to keep an eye on that, and maybe it will evolve over time.
Yeah, evolving situation in Switzerland, but good to see that they're on the map. They're talking now, where they've basically shunned it, ignored it, said that it's not an issue in Switzerland. Switzerland people do not consume cannabis. They've been in complete denial of the entire situation for decades upon decades, saying it's not a Swiss issue. Where obviously it is. It's an issue everywhere. It's a global issue because everybody across the globe consumes cannabis. It's not isolated to any one region at all. So I'm glad to see that they're finally stepping up and coming to the table with this.
There's another organization of pharmacies in Switzerland that's not so impressed. It says it is in favor of controlled distribution of cannabis for medical purposes, but is not convinced that the public pharmacies are suitable locations for this.
Yeah, once again, back and forth. It'll be an evolving situation over there as it was here. As you said, we've seen this play out here. One group is in favor, another group is against. The government will have to get in the middle there and take some steps to make some new regulations and to figure out what direction they're going to go.
And if anybody's wondering, in Switzerland currently cannabis is illegal, though the law was relaxed in 2013. Instead of facing criminal proceedings, adults caught with 10 grams or less can be subject to a 100 franc spot fine, though it's not enforced. It's enforced differently across the country.
Yeah.
So it's not enforced. It's not enforced equally. That was one of the arguments we had here in Canada as well. But that's to me, I look at that as a decriminalization situation where you're getting caught with 10 grams and you're just going to get a fine and walk away.
Yeah, if you even get the
under decrim, you can still get provincial and municipal fines.
Yeah, that's right. And then you see other ones, one set of group of people targeted more than another, and it leads to a whole new host of problems. So evolving situation going on in Switzerland, but they've joined the party.
Yes, they have. That's good. More people are joining it. All right, Kim, I think that's it.
That's it for this week. It's been a busy week in the news, that's for sure, and I expect it just to continue like this for the rest of 2019.
So do I, as more and more countries jump on board.
For sure.
Well, yeah, that's our Reefer Report for January the 14th, 2019. In closing, we'd like to say thank you to our sponsor, 420legacy.com, and to you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please share it with our co-workers, those you love, and those who need to know. And don't forget, you can catch us every Monday around 2 p.m. now. This is a new time, 2 p.m. And we are live here at 420radio.ca. Until the next time, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
Bark at you later.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.